Wow. You know, my one concept for commencing this session was to begin with a standing ovation, to give you a standing ovation, because I feel that's what you deserve for your patience with yourself, being steadfast, having come this far. My creative director, on the other hand, wouldn't agree with that. They won't even let me give you an applause. So I'm just going to say, well done, well done to you, and I wish I could personally give you a high five, a hug, a fist bump. I don't know what really works for you. But I'd really like to say well done and cheers to yourself. You've really done well. You know, when you think about where you started from, nothing, from zero knowledge, and have come this far. Now you know fundamental things about Python programming language. And just in our previous session, we're looking at NumPy, a library, still to help you use Python to analyze data. So seeing Python, now want to see how we can work with data and getting right into it. In today's session, we're going to be working with another library, one of the most popular libraries for working with data or analyzing data using Python. That is Pandas. Okay. If you recall in our earlier interactions, we had said, wow, we're trying to establish what we understood by library. Okay, so a set of already defined codes, functions, we've learned classes, so you don't have to write these functions again or write these classes again. It has already been written by someone or a group of persons, a team. So it's just to leverage on that existing knowledge and use it to achieve the particular task that you have in hand. Okay, so having said that, the library we're going to be working with is Pandas, and Pandas is a quite popular library within the Python scenery, as it were, which is used to analyze data. This data that we're speaking to more popularly, two-dimensional data. So by two-dimensional data, if you recall, I'm trying to say tabular data. So data that are expressed in tables, tabular forms. And the beautiful thing about working with the Pandas library is that it allows us to work with data that we can write, like create on our own here in our code editor, or we could also import the data as a file type. So if you recall, said how you could work with data. Sometimes you could download it from the internet. It could be shared with you via mail, which is there to download from the internet, right? But different file types is what I really tend to speak on. So the first thing about what is pandas, and it's spelled as Panda, panda with an S, pandas. Okay. The first thing you want to do is you want to ensure that you have pandas installed in your computer. So you go with the pip command, pip install pandas. You run that typically at the console bit or the CMD or at your CMD prompt to ensure that you have pandas running, on your machine. Having said that, then you can come over to the code editor if you have pandas installed there, and this command, just as we did for the numpy, we say we import pandas, and we always use an alias. Now the alias, like I said with numpy bit, it's subjective. It's just conventional, especially if you're working with a team. We're used to expressing pandas with the alias of PD. Okay, so we're just going to just stick with PD. But if, for instance, you want to be more unique, you could change your alias. All right, it's just an alias. With this now, we've imported, we have pandas in here, and pandas. So we're working with data frames and pandas. Now we can create. I'm just going to go with this intelligence to create. So we can create our own data frame. Now we could create it like I said, or you could have the file imported. So to create one, I'm just going to work with a dictionary, containing a list. So I'm just going to call this the first data frame. So I'm going to use the expression of df, okay, or just say data one, okay, data one. And now this is going to be typically uh, dictionary, okay. Now I'm going to populate this dictionary, and I can see options here. I'm going to go with these options, but I just want to have ours. So say serial number as one of our keys. Okay, serial numbers. Remember how we worked with dictionaries, right? Serial numbers. I'm going to let this fly here. I think I can work with this as well. Serial numbers, and so we could say title. I want to have titles as another key. And for the titles, what I typically want to have is I want to have someone with Mr. Okay, yes, we can work with this. And then for the names, let's see. Yep, but I've just stuck with that option for the 30 cents, right? Yeah, so we can go with this, and it also has more. I think we can just stop with this. So I'm going to just leave this in here. Now, this is a dictionary, right? But we need to transform this to a data frame. So because we're working with pandas, the pandas library, it already has those predefined functions, classes that have been written. So we just make reference to these methods. If you recall, a method is a function in a class, okay, and how we make reference to it is by calling the instance of the class with the dot notation. Now, the pandas, the link for the official pandas framework, you could also see that, so you could read up and get more familiar with things for yourself. So what I'm just going to do here, I'm saying IntelliSense stuff, so I'm just going to say our data frame one, okay, data frame one is going to be equal to, just as IntelliSense saying PD, because of the alias, we're referencing the library PD dot. So now this is it, the data frame here is referring to a method within the pandas library. So in this, and as we call a method where we have to pass a variable. So I'm passing this argument, right? Because it's required for this. So I'm passing this argument, which is this dictionary here, data one. Eventually we could always, you can always let's just say print data one. We can always do this. Okay. You can just say print data one, and we see our dictionary in here just as it is. But because we're trying to deal with it as a data set, a tabular data set, that's why we're not trying to take advantage of what has been done within the pandas library. So with the pandas library here, if I were to, instead of saying print that bit, to now say print data frame one, you can see that the expression is different. It has more of this tabular set. And if you just compare it, you can see serial number as a column header, title as a column header, name as a column header, age as a column header, and all this list now are values. Typically, they are rows. Okay, so this, is a table. You could see this as a table and you make reference to it. Now, it's also important to know that when we're making reference to items within a data frame, depending on how we're going to make reference to them, we should not forget about indexing. So remember, indexing, we don't start from one, counting from one. And luckily, the code editor displays that for us here. So we can see 0 as the first row, and it goes similarly. If you're referencing the column as an index, it would be 0 for this first column here, not 1 as the first column. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the first bit of just working with data frames that we are creating ourselves. We won't always have to do this. Okay. Now there are more things that we can do beyond this here now because we're working with the Pandas library and we have array to different methods, different functions. Some key functions, that you could use when you're reading data. Now we have our data frame. We can do things such as data frame here, dot, and you can say shape. So here now it says it returns the shape of the data frame. Sorry, I think data frame one dot shape. Let's just backspace on this. So returns the shape. So the shape typically is telling you the number of rows and columns. So the number of rows and columns. So that's why, so we have it outputted here. It says 3 comma 4. 3 comma 4. So that means it's 3 rows, 4 columns. Looking at this dictionary, you can see that these are 4 columns, 4 headers. I'm just going to uncomment this bit so you can see it for yourself that how many rows? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 3 rows and 4 columns. So the shape, we use the shape method or shape function to typically get a general overview of the structure of the table. So you can have an idea. Sometimes you're working with a data set that is quite large, and we're going to get to that on how to import or read data sets that are quite large. So you can just have an idea, oh, how many rows are in this data set, how many columns are in this data set, so you can also act accordingly. Okay. Now, moving forward, there are other key functions or methods that I would still want us to explore. Another one is data frame one dot info. Okay, dot info. So with this, we're just going to allow IntelliSense. It gives you information about the data frame, and for it to execute this, let's comment this other bit out. Sorry about that. Here we can see what it's telling us that it's a data frame range index, where you can see total data columns, 4 columns, and it's now trying to not trying to, it's basically interpreting the type of data contained in each column. So you can see like would I call it an analysis or a report of your data frame. So for the serial number column, you can see that it has the data type of int. That's how it's reading it. The age, because they are numbers. Remember, we talked about number types. And see here, like the index of the columns as well. Which I was trying to also jog your memory to. So there are several other important methods that it's very important good to have at your fingertips. Before I get to describe, what I want to show you is head. Okay, data frame dot head. So it shows you the first few rows of your data frame. Typically by default it shows you the first 5. Okay, it shows you the first 5. Just come here to comment this line out as well. So because we don't even have up to 5 records in here, so it just shows all of this. In our next the next bit of data sets or data frame that we're going to be working with, we'll have more records and you're going to see this data.head. The an alternative to data.head, which is head, top, bottom, is data.tail, which shows you from top, bottom. Now the other bit that was popping up there was dot describe. Okay, data frame dot describe. I'm going to just add it. What this does is it will return a summary descriptive analysis of your data set. So typically, when I'm saying data set, it looks for the columns that have numerical data, and tries to give you a descriptive analysis of this or statistical report of that. I think a better way to do that would just be to simply execute this. So you can see 2 columns that have numerical data, the serial number, the age column. So you can just see how it now displays that bit there, SNO, age, column, and it's showing you count, mean, which is your average, standard deviation. And if you try to just do this, it's easier with SNO. We have one, two, three. So I'm just trying to just do the mean here. Okay, so 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 divided by n, n being the number of observations, statistics, that gives us 2. Okay, so you can just see, yeah, and these are important things. Okay, these are important things. You can almost say the class is over. This is data analysis, and you would be right. However, of course, you want to know more things, and that's where we're going to get into. So now the next bit now is going to be us working with a data set that is external to our code editor here. Here we've been working with data one, right, which we called data frame because to this. But now we want to work with a data set that has been shared with us, or perhaps you downloaded. And I have one downloaded. I downloaded from Kaggle, right? So Kaggle, allows you to access data sets. And so this is the data set, smartphone data set, and it has all of this data in it. I also have it open in Google Sheets, so you can see. So I have it downloaded, and it's saved as smartphones underscore dataset .csv. Now to work with that, coming down here, I'm going to just comment this out a bit too. So first thing to do is to read this. So I'm just going to let's say this session here, working with external data. External data. We already have Pandas installed, so no need to run that installation again. Now what I'm going to do here is to call something to be able to read it. So the file type, which speaks to the extension of the file, it's important. A CSV file has the extension of .csv. An Excel file, a typical Excel file, has the extension of .xlsx. It's also confusing when I have to say it out that way. So what do I do here? I'm going to try to read it, and I want to be calling it with CSV. So let me just say read CSV. Read CSV. Okay. And IntelliSense is already doing its bit here. So read CSV as a variable. I'm going to now reference PD. Remember, because we imported pandas, right, as PD, our alias. So PD, and it has a method that allows us to read CSV. Okay, so allows us to read the CSV, and we must pass different functions, arguments to it, some positional arguments that perhaps are named arguments. If you take your time to just peruse the documentation of the Pandas framework, you would see all of that. So the first thing we're supposed to pass is the file name or the file path. Okay, the file name or the file path. Since I have already downloaded this file in the same repository, so just to cut that technical jargon off, I have the file downloaded, saved in the same folder where this Python workbook or Python script is saved. It's okay if I just put the name in quotes, okay, single quotes, double quotes, it's accepted. However, if the file is saved in a different repository, or stored in a different location, yeah, I think that's simpler term. If it's stored in a different location, you have to reference the entire file path. So perhaps it's stored in a folder that you've called CSV. You have to, the way you have to do the C user, all of those things, you have to specify the file type. So in this case here, I already have it saved as smartphone, which I told about, right? Smartphone. I'm just going to let it write here, smartphone.csv, because it's saved in the same folder. So that's why this is going to run. Okay. Now there are more things that you could add. You could add when you're calling this function here. When you're calling this function, there are more things you could add. I want to change this name to smartphone. Should I just call it smartphone data? It's pretty long. I know it's pretty long for a variable name, but just for illustrative purposes. Okay. So smartphone underscore data. And first thing I want to just do here now, see, same way we were working with these methods here, is I want to see the shape. Okay. So I can say smartphone data dot shape, right? To get the shape of it. I execute, and what are we saying here? 980 comma 26. So what does this indicate? This tells us that we have 980 rows and 26 columns. And if we get to refer to this here on Cargo, on Cargo you can come to see summary of the file. So we can see that it has 26 columns, which coincides with what it says here, 26. And the number of rows, sometimes they might not tell us that it's not always displayed in here. But coming in here, I can just see 980 unique values. This for a particular column, of course. So it kind of, so it still goes ahead to still speak to things that we have, we have returned here. So I hope this gives you a better understanding of the shape method, okay? To just tell you the report of, oh, this your data set or your data frame, it has this number of rows and this number of columns. Now, what are other methods that we've seen there that we can work with? I'm just going to go with the head, right? So we have now 980 columns, right? 980 columns. So I'm going to go with the head. Now in this head method, by default it returns 5. You could specify more if you want. So I'm just going to run this here now. Let's comment this shape bit out here and run. So we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No more than this. Okay. Because like I said, it's going to return the first 5 rows, and see all the columns, can scroll depending on the code editor you're using. Similarly, if you want to specify a particular number of records returned, we could just say, we just put the number in there. So I'm just going to put in 3 and I execute this, so we can see we have just 3 rows returned. Okay. Now I'd also mentioned that just as we have, just as the head method runs, we also have for tail. So tail does the inverse of the head, that it shows you the last, like from bottom up. So you see that the records are different here, and we could also specify, it shows you the last 5, and if you want to, you can specify to say, hey, I don't want 5, I just want to see the last 2, and voila, we can see this here. Now let's move on to see something about the describe. So the describe, like we're seeing, shows you statistical summary of your data frame. However, when it's run like this, what it returns is statistical report of columns that have numerical data when it's run like this. And if you look at all these columns, there are columns that will typically have numerical data: price, rating, number calls, processor speed, and it goes on. But these are not all the columns. These are not all the columns, because when we also do, smartphone data dot head. So let's just do this head. I'm going to say I just want 2 columns, just 2 columns here. I could even do imports with this. Okay, 2 columns. Now and I want to comment this one first, so we can just have it. We have brand name column. We have column for model, right? Brand name model. But when we come over here, we don't see brand name or we don't see model being analyzed. That's because, as we could tell, brand name deals with text data, string. What can you do if you also want statistical reports or analysis, summary, descriptive statistical analysis done on columns that also um, they are not restricted in terms of like it's not just numerical data. What you could do is to pass an argument in your describe. So with that argument is include. So you just say include. I can see the intelligence saying that include all. There are other ways of also doing this. So just include all, and we close this. Now when we execute, we can see brand name, model, these columns that were not included before, and we also have more things to show. So we have unique, top, frequency. So for unique, now this did not apply to numerical data sets, okay? But for these ones now, it applies and you say, oh, unique, 46 unique brands, okay? For the models, there aren't any unique one. Frequency, 134, and this seems to be the one with that bit. So in this section, we're just looking at, how to read these data sets, how to read the data frame that you've imported. In our next section, we're going to move to the next phase, of data analysis. So yes, you get your data, you've read your data by viewing your data. So that's what I mean by you read your data, So the next thing we're going to do in our next session is cleaning the data. What are the things that we can adopt to clean our data? Okay. Of course, there are other things in terms of reading our data or viewing our data, which we're also going to look at in the later bit after cleaning our data, where we can reference our data based on columns if we just want a particular column returned. So I'm just still going to just say smartphone data. And for smartphone data, you can specify the column you want. So with square bracket in here, and you know the name of the column. So we'll just say, so brand name, luckily we have brand name in here, and you just execute and it just returns only that column brand name. Now, sometimes that's for that column brand name. You may want to reference a particular point in the data or a range based on its indexing. I'm going to give you a teaser and I expect you to just look that up. I want you to look up this. So I've done for columns. So I want you to look up this, and I also want you to not just this. Sorry. Yeah, I want you to look up this, and I also want you to look up this. These two things. What do they mean? How can you apply them? And I'd like to also see your feedback in the comment section, on what you were able to find out on that. In our next section, we're going to see how we can clean these data frames or data sets and take it up with our analysis, which has been the main reason why we came together to know how to analyze data using Python. You've seen one bit of it already, which is using your describe, okay, and the describe suffices, okay. But the next bit, we're going to see how we can clean the data. So even if you want to just export that descriptive report, statistical report of your data set, you just know like, well, you're doing this, or this analysis is done based on really cleaned and pruned data, data that takes off all inconsistencies and the likes. Once again, congratulations for coming this far. Now, see you in the next session. Bye for now.